Okay, so this is kind of the main reference photograph, and then this is the field study that I did on location. We need to really focus in this, as I indicated before, on color. And the best way to do that is isolate color from everything else. And that's what the emphasis is going to be for the rest of today. And what you're going to work on for the next couple weeks is thinking strictly about the color and the value and nothing else. Now, a lot of times we get our minds wrapped up into things like trees and cattails and lily pads and guys fishing and all that stuff, little branches and things like that. Those things are incidental. Those things in and of themselves do not make a strong painting. What makes a strong painting, if your objective is to go for representing the scene as it is getting first and foremost to color and value relationships. But it can be overwhelming too. When you look at a reference photo, we can get really seduced by, you know, the little tree branches back there and these little neat things here. I mean, nature's beautiful, you know, and the cattails there and all that, the softness of the reflections, the ripples in the water. A lot of times, those are the things that will inspire you to paint, but those things in and of themselves do not make a good painting. The trick of the artist is that you have to think in these terms. You don't think about stuff. You think about painting shapes of color and value. That is it. That is the key to painting well, is breaking that down to color and value and sticking it in the right spot and making it the right shape and size. That's all painting is. But getting to that point of thinking is difficult. So I want to show you guys something. So we have this photograph here, and look at this here. That is the photograph we just saw, a little bit more cropped in because I wanted to get to the essentials. Heavily pixelated. I did this in Photoshop. Now you don't need to do this, but this is how you want to think at this stage. And you can see what I have going on here is I have the slightly more intense oranges, the slightly more neutral oranges in here, and then we go into these cooler areas. So what I want to be thinking about is getting basically just these approximate colors, and that's it. We're going to look at the next one. This is my field study, also pixelated. You can see how the colors are interpreted a bit differently than in here, especially in the shadow areas. Notice how in the shadow areas, all right, we have these very muted but violet colors in here. There's really hardly any blue. You could say that these might be a slightly dark blue, but for the most part I have these very muted violets and very muted greens in there. And then when we go out to this area here, notice how the dark areas in the trees, let's go back to the actual field study here. So these dark areas in the trees, notice how when I pixelated them in the computer, they're not nearly as dark as what's going on down here. So those are important things to note. We don't think at all about twigs or trees or cattails and that. We're thinking mainly about blocks of color and value. This is precisely how you want to think at this stage. So what I want you to do on the subsequent studies we're going to do for the next 2 weeks, I want you, before you paint, to get terms out of your head like branches, twigs, water, sky. All that stuff has got to be removed from your mind. And instead, you need to think about terms of color and value. And that would be, so trees and twigs and that is going to be replaced with, what hue is it? Is it orange? Is it more greenish? And what value is it? Which is probably the most important part. Is it a super dark value? Is it a light value? How light is it? And how neutral or how intense is it? And then what's going to get me there? That's how you want to think when you're doing this stuff. And nobody told me about this many years ago. I wish somebody would have. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do in my workshops is I learned all this very painstakingly over many, many years of trial and error. And I'm trying to show you guys all the aha moments that, dang, if somebody just told me that when I first started or when I was partway through, I would have got it a lot faster. The limited palette can be a good place to start because it really simplifies the whole color thinking process for you. So I have titanium white. This is cad yellow pale. This is cad red medium. This is ultramarine blue. So the first thing I'm going to do is, a lot of times I try to figure out my darks. Now I talked about using Venetian and ultramarine blue and white, but I'm going to do cad red, which is super strong, by the way. I don't use cad red very often, but I'm going to use cad red, ultramarine blue, and a little bit of white. And then I'm going to add just a touch of white, and I'm going to add just a touch of yellow too. But I'm keeping this on a slightly violet side. Now the more yellow you add to it, the more toward brown it's going to get. So want to be careful that we don't add too much yellow, just a little bit. And I'm going to divide this in half. That way if I want to, I can do 2 studies, or I can put color swatches down here. So I'm just going to think about the general shape of my shadow. I'm going to put that one whole color in there. By the way, the value of that, it's a number 1. Okay, now I'm going to take and try to figure out an approximate light color of the trees. So I'm going to take the cad yellow. I'm going to add some red to it. And I'm just going to test that out right here and see if it feels like I'm close. It's not quite there, but it's close. So I'm going to just put this, mix some more of this. Now, one other color that I want to get in right away that's going to be very important for me to gauge all of this is the sky. Sky is going to be our lightest value. I'm going to take titanium white. I'm going to grab some clean ultramarine blue. Now, ultramarine blue is probably not the best color ultimately for the sky. Probably want to go with like a cobalt or even cerulean. But I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to it. Okay, so right now I have, for the most part, I have everything blocked in. Okay, so now we have to go into our technical problem solving mode. When we say lighter, are we referring, are you referring to value, or are you referring to color intensity? What are your thoughts on there? Remember the 3 aspects of color. You have hue, value, and intensity. So when you look at that, what are your thoughts on the shadow area? If we say lighter, are you thinking value? I probably need to go lighter with my value, my shadow area. How do I accomplish that from a technical perspective when I'm mixing? I need to add a lighter color. What are my lighter options?
Yellow and white.
Yellow and white, okay. So if I add yellow to it, what's that gonna do? Yeah, it's gonna warm it up, make it more toward a brown. Is that a good solution? It might be, I don't know. Let's try it. It's actually going to shift it a little more toward green. I can add a little bit of red to it, a little more red, but it does lighten the value a bit. As you can see there, you can see a little shift between the light area here and the dark area right there. But let's add this in here. Doesn't seem to make much difference at all. So let's go
White.
With more yellow. And what does that do? Well, then we start getting green. Does that look good? Let's stick that right there and see. It could be in there, but it's, I probably don't want a lot of it. So what's another option now? Let me go back and remix some more of this. What's that? I'm sorry?
Why don't you try a little bit of orange in that? Good.
You mean more red and more yellow?
Well, the color that you have down below your red where you mix that little bit.
Okay, so add that into the green?
Yeah.
Okay. And with a limited palette, that makes it very convenient to do. So let's try that. And let's stick some of that in there and see how that does. It's not bad. I might keep playing with it a little bit and see how that looks. I definitely think it looks better than what we had before. It pushes it toward a greener tone. Let's try adding white to it once. What's that going to do? See, we start to get almost too cool again.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, don't know if I like that. But I think we made some improvements to the shadow. But here's the trick that a lot of people don't realize is that when you're doing this, it's not just, you can't isolate the shadow because you also have this area here too to contend with. This probably needs adjustment as well. So let's try some adjustment to it. See, the lighter I get with this though, then notice how it's starting to make this shadow area look darker again. Yep. And that's where you've heard me say many times is all about relationships. This shadow area would not be too dark if I kept this darker. But if I go lighter with this, it kind of necessitates then that I need to lighten the shadow as well. So that's a decision you have to make. That's where you might have heard people talk about keying in a painting where you can paint the overall thing a little bit darker. You can have the light area be darker and then the dark area can be darker as well. But if you go lighter with this, then I have to go lighter with the dark area also. I just focused merely on the relationship between the dark of the trees, the light of the trees, and the sky. The color relationships and the value relationships. I didn't focus on anything else. Once you get that, then you can take and make color swatches here. And you can even write down, I've done this before, where I might put like, you know, this is the mid-tone, the transition area color, the main transition color between the shadows and the light areas. That could be right there, my main light area color. And I can write that down on the paper. You can do it on canvas too if you want. Let's play with one more thing, just to show you how we can experiment with this. Hopefully I don't wreck this. What if I were to go darker now with the sky? What would that do? And see the thing...
Get us in trouble because our sky's too dark?
Probably, but you know, let's play with it once and see. But this is the beauty of doing this, is that you can experiment with this stuff. You know, like, okay, what, maybe you would like a darker sky. You see how it changes the effect of it? It changes the whole mood of it when I went darker with that sky. And there's not necessarily a right or wrong, but just like, do I like that or not? But see how that changes the look of the trees too, just by what I did with the sky there. The main thing is you're trying to examine how change in the one affects the other. Because I put in that shadow and then I blocked in some light area, and you saw how when I altered one, it affected the other. That's why it's all about relationships. Your task is to see how those changes between the lights and the darks and the warms and the cools, what effect they have on the other one, on the other color mass, and if that's something that's desirable or not. If it's not, then you got more work to do. It's more experimentation. Don't beat yourself up though. Don't go, oh, I just can't get this. Get to work and go, okay, this isn't working. What do I need to do? If it's not working, break it down to the technicals. There's only 3 things at this point, because we're only doing this one section right in here. There's only 3 things that can go wrong. Either your value's off, your color temperature is off, or you're too saturated or not saturated enough. That's it. Sticking with a very limited palette like I did here doesn't mean your final painting has to be like that, but sticking with the limited palette then makes the decision and problem solving process a lot easier. If I'm too dark, well, I probably need to go more toward my lighter colors here. And if I go, what happens if I add the CAD yellow? Well, we saw that. It pushed it more toward a brown. We put that in there. Does that look good? It might. You give it a shot. You might put it all over almost a whole shadow area. But you saw too that a lot of times one color is not the only solution. You know, we have kind of a myriad of slight, you know, reddish colors, greenish colors, even some oranger colors in there. So I'm going to experiment with that. If I need to go darker, I probably need to go more toward ultramarine, maybe some CAD red. And a lot of times it's not just one color that's a solution. You saw when I added, you know, ultramarine blue, I might have to temper that down either with some yellow or some red because I don't want to go too blue. But using just the 3 colors in white can simplify the process of thinking and problem solving.